If you're a mineral owner who's getting blown up with cold calls, flyers, and offers galore, I made this video for you. Howdy folks, my name is Steven Hatcher and I'm the creator of Minerals Guy. On this channel we share tips on minerals management, mineral valuation, and how to achieve maximum value for your mineral rights. If you're getting value from our content, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to our channel so that you get notified whenever we post new content. My business acquires thousands of acres of mineral rights all across the country every single year. And we do that by tailoring custom solutions for mineral owners just like you. Okay, so you're getting cold calls, flyers, offers galore from mineral buyers everywhere. All of this activity is a great indicator that there's something going on with your property, but you might not be quite sure what. And maybe you dismiss the offers without another thought. But if you're watching this video, chances are that you're at least thinking about it. What you do is totally up to you. And as I like to tell mineral owners, you are in the catbird seat. But let me arm you with a few guidelines to help you know whether now is a good time to seriously consider an offer to sell. And let me start off with some straight facts about selling minerals. First and foremost, you have to understand that you will always make less money in absolute terms if you elect to sell. After all, if the buyer paid you all the future undiscounted cash flow from your property, they wouldn't make any money and they would not be in business for very long. It's like winning the lottery. The lump sum is always less than the monthly annuity. The benefit of selling is that you get a lump sum of cash versus a monthly stream of cash flows. The downside is that you're trading some of the margin that you would make by holding for the certainty of receiving that fixed sum today. We did a video on this exact topic a few months ago. You should see a link to it pop up right there above. The second thing to consider is that some people say that you should never sell minerals. But that saying is from a time where mineral rights were not well understood and where a market really didn't exist. Today, there are literally billions of dollars of mineral rights that are being bought, sold, and traded all across this country every single year. And the market is larger and more liquid than ever. I say that there's a time and a place to harvest every single investment, and minerals are no exception. Let me give you an example. So I actually recently sold some royalty interests that I owned in the Wyoming portion of the DJ Basin. This was a great property and we owned interests in over 250 oil and gas wells because of these mineral rights. So why would I sell it? Well, I was at a decision point. The property was nearing full development, meaning that all the wells that could be drilled had been drilled. I was making great cash flow, but I knew that those properties would begin their natural decline very soon. But the property was still very attractive to buyers because of where it fell on the development curve, which we'll talk about here in just a second. And to achieve the price that I ended up selling for, I would have had to wait over 4 years at my current level of cash flow, which would have ended up being more like 6 to 8 years of forward cash flow, due once again to well decline. I also had another real estate project that I was ready to redeploy that capital into. So selling made perfect sense for me in that situation. So when should you seriously consider an offer to sell your minerals? And to answer that, let's look at what I call the development curve for minerals. And the one thing to keep in mind here is that the value of your minerals is not static. In fact, they can fluctuate wildly based on activity and commodity prices. So the development curve for minerals looks a lot like a bell curve, right? It's flat on either side and there's a hump in the middle. And on the left side of the curve, you can see what we classify as undeveloped minerals, and everything on the right side of the curve is what we call developed or producing minerals. Now, on the left side of the curve, there are multiple stages to basically take non-producing minerals and get them to development, get them to production. And some of this stuff is going to look familiar to a lot of you. And what you see is it's during this undeveloped stage where your minerals can appreciate very quickly. So you may go from unleased one day to signing an oil and gas lease, to having a permit issued, to actual drilling and completion operations commencing on the property, and eventually to production. And it's during this phase from leasing to drilling and production activity where your minerals will appreciate the most. And what I like to call the sweet spot is the WIP, so well in progress, which I classify as anything after a permit is issued but prior to first production. This is the point in time at which your minerals are actually peaking in value. value. Now, what happens as soon as those wells start to commence flowback? Well, A, you start to get checks in the mail, which is fantastic, but the value of your minerals is going to start to decline with the production from that well. So now that we understand the mineral development curve, let's talk through a few different scenarios. First, if your tract is non-producing and you're receiving offers, more likely than not, your tract is in the path of development. A lot of buyers focus their efforts on buying non-producing tracts ahead of the drill bit. So should you sell at this point? Well, it really depends on what the next 10 years of your life looks like. If you're younger, say in your 30s or 40s, then time is on your side and maybe you should consider holding. On the other hand, if you're 68 and you've already been waiting for 10 years for that first well to get drilled, selling could help you unlock the cash that you need to go and do the things you want to do while you can still do them. If it takes until you're 78 or 80 for those wells to get drilled, are you okay with that? Maybe you've got a plan to pass that legacy on to your children. But remember, you can't take it with you. But are you going to get and should you expect the same level of value that you would get if you had a drilled and fracked well on your property? No. Now, the next scenario is the WIP scenario. So there's a well in progress either on your tract or on a tract that's pooled with your tract. So at this point, you've already been leased. You're probably receiving notices from regulators or the operators themselves, and your phone is probably ringing off the hook. Now, why are all those buyers calling you all of a sudden? Well, they want the flush production from that new well, and some of them are willing to pay top dollar to get it. So the WIP stage is when your minerals are going to increase in value the most, and this is by far when you will get the most outreach from buyers. Okay, so the third and final scenario is if you own a producing tract, right? So you're coming down the backside of the development curve. And this is a pretty great time, right? So if you've held that property for a long time, you've been waiting on that well to get drilled, that first royalty check can be pretty sweet. But remember that every single oil and gas well in the world produces based on a hyperbolic curve that looks like a ski jump, meaning that well will decline and your checks will eventually go down. If death and taxes are the two most certain things in life, the third is that your oil and gas well will decline and so will your checks. Now, there could be more room for more wells to be drilled in the future, so this cycle could repeat itself. But once your tract is fully drilled, those wells will all decline and so will the value of your mineral rights. And once your tract starts producing, the number of purchase offers that you will receive will go down. And this is because there are less buyers that chase producing properties versus WIP properties. But selling is always still an option if you own producing minerals. But just remember that the offer won't be what it once was. So when is the best time to sell? There are excellent opportunities to divest minerals and achieve great value all across the development curve. But if you want to get the highest value in terms of absolute dollars, you want to sell at the top, either during the WIP stage or just after your wells start to produce. And if you're receiving a ton of offers and you're seriously considering selling, click the link below to get a free, no cost, no obligation consultation. Our team will do all the research and show you exactly where you are on the development curve. And if I can ever do anything for you, feel free to shoot me an email at steven@mineralsguide.com.